Welcome back to the Magic Sponge Podcast, miracle cure for all your rugby league injury issues. I'm Brien. I'm the guy behind all the NRL Physio content you see on socials. James, you are my co-host. You are here on a Sunday night. Mate, we got rolled in the cricket. I'm not super excited about Origin because Billy's, I think, gone down the Freddie route and probably got the Queensland boys earthing by this point. But the fins are up, mate. My fin is up. It's been up all weekend. I don't think it's going to go down for a long, long time. Like eventual premiers. Imagine if we had the four of the best middles in the comp playing in our pack as well. It's a good time to be a Dolphins fan, and I'm just hanging on to that. I had a thought today. I'm like, is this... And once again, New South Wales fans, you're really good after last week. I had a few reaching out to me, letting me know about how they felt during certain times in that Origin run for Queensland. I'm like, is this how New South Wales fans felt during that run? Because at the moment, I'm just so attached to my club side, and I'm not feeling great about the Origin team. Is that am I getting some New South Wales spirit in me at this point in time, James? Is that what it means to be a New South Wales Origin fan of the 2010s?
Maybe it is, Brien. I don't know. You'd have to check in on someone south of the border who was born in that part of the world. But, to your point about the cricket, we definitely parked the old gas truck there, didn't we? We took the absolute gas in the cricket. And I didn't have much to do on the Broncos front, but my goodness, watching the Finns, Brien, what we've rattled off 44, 56, and 58 points in consecutive weeks. That might be the hottest of hot streaks any team has had for quite some time. I don't know, you'd have to get a statistician to look up the details there, and I'm sure you as an absolute sicko for the Finns would probably know a bit more than that, but it's just exquisite champagne rugby league football. That's the only way I can possibly describe it, because points are flowing. Cody Nikorima is looking like the second coming of Wally Lewis. Isaiah Katoa is looking like JT reincarnated. It's just absolutely fins up for the Redcliffe Dolphins there, Brien. It's a good time to be a fan for you, especially.
Oh, mate, I think we were talking the middle is pretty grim, right? Their middle is not fantastic, but at the moment they're just scoring. They're not needing their middle. They're just scoring from 40, 50, 60 meters out at times. And they don't need a middle because they're just, it's cool stuff. It's cool stuff. And playing weakened teams, but I think we're weakened week in and week out at the moment because, as I said, our forwards are, they're, oh man, it makes me think, what if, as much as I'm very happy, I'm like, oh man, if we had the likes of Gilbert, Plath, Flegler, Saifiti to a lesser extent, but all those guys, I'd be buying grand final tickets, I reckon, James, to be honest, if we were doing all this.
Yep.
I'd be on board. So, look, let's get straight into it. We won't make it too much of a Fin-centric podcast, even though that I want to start a podcast about the Fins just for me to wax lyrical about putting up 50 points. The most exciting thing, James, is my daughter is losing her mind about because she obviously goes to bed before the game, the highlights packages. She's losing it. So it's just great to share with her. But look, guys, as usual, we're on YouTube. Check us out over there if you want to see me in my wonderful Fins jersey, and James sticking to the Queensland spirit in his Queensland gear tonight. This is your one-stop shop for all things injury analysis in there. We're going to loop all the injuries back to SuperCoach, fantasy, performance, injury risk, all those kind of things. But let's get into the injury wrap for this week, which is brought to you by PainPod, drug-free pain relief anyone can use.
I don't know exactly what he's done. I would have thought it was an ankle, but I'm just guessing. He shouldn't be out for a long period of time. I mean, I'm no doctor. We have to wait for the scans, obviously, but that'd be more positive than negative.
Another week of bye-week footy done and dusted, Brien. So we're going to launch into HIAs as we usually do. Victor Radley, Egan Butcher, Jazzy Tevaga, Taine Tuaupiki from New South Wales Cup is a name on the list here, and also Siua Wong. There's probably a few talking points out of this, Brien, isn't there? I think Victor Radley is probably the most interesting because there might be a little fantasy super coach ripple down effect there, depending on if he's going to miss significant time. Hey.
Yeah, I think Victor's the big talking point. I'll finish with him because he's probably the big one. Siua Wong I wanted to mention because someone keyed me into, he kind of came out of a tackle reeling right before full time. It was a bit wobbly. The Roosters being one of the only teams I have a pretty good connection with clarified to me today. He was category 2, had a HIA post-game, and is all good. So for any Siua Wong fans or owners out there, he should be fine for next week, provided he doesn't develop any, delayed concussion symptoms or anything like that. Jazzy Tevaga and Egan Butcher, look, I think they're both category 1. So Jazz has the bye next week anyway, but neither of those guys will play for 11 days. Mate, that will teach Tony Seeps to put Jazzy T on the bench. Don't do it ever again. Start him, play him 70 minutes. My SuperCoach team will be very, very happy. Taine Tuaupiki, he got absolutely leveled in one of the worst hits I reckon I've seen this year in New South Wales Cup. If you haven't seen it, go on Twitter and look it up. I was going to post it. I said to you off air, I saw it and I was like, that's cooked. I need to post it and kind of be like, this is why tackling high in those situations is good. But then I went to the comments, and like half to 3/4 of them were like, oh, looks like a pretty good hit. No head contact, even though the reports from the ground from, the ref and people who were there was direct to the head, knocked Tuaupiki out cold. These kind of things. So it's it's one of those things. And I think like to show the non-bias, like it's the same with Felice Kafusi, mate. Like when you fly up out of the line like that and go high, like it's just shit technique. Like you because you're traveling so fast, they only have to move one little bit and you absolutely cook them and often yourself. So thoughts go out to Tuaupiki. Hope he's okay. But I guess the big one is Victor Radley. So this is his 5th HIA of this year. He's failed 2. Now, of the 3 he passed, one of them he passed and then he missed.
It was sketchy, wasn't it? I remember.
Well, mate, they're all 5.
Well.
All 5 you could absolutely have justified. Like I wouldn't have. And once again, I'm not passing any doubt onto the doctor from the Roosters here, because I just think more just saying, like, I think Radley is getting progressively more and more affected by these head knocks, which is completely normal. Like this happens when you get, or often happens with players when they get a lot of head knocks. But there was one where he missed like a week with a cheekbone or an eye socket injury after it as well, but they were saying it wasn't a concussion. So he's had like effectively where I'm going with it is he's had a lot of trauma to his head and to his brain this season. Because where I'm going to go next, and people always, say how many concussions before Boyd Cordner retired, how many concussions before Jake Friend retired. So I think we never found out the exact number for Boyd Cordner, but Jake Friend was 20. Now Radley has had, so Radley's had 7 that we know of, right? So I think Friend, he was only like 13 that we knew of, but then they announced that it was 20 over his entire career, right? So obviously there are a few that we didn't know of. So here with Radley, it's 7 that we know of, but it's not all about the number of concussions, and Radley's a really good example of that, because even though he's only had 2 concussions by rights this year, he's copped 5 really heavy blows to the head where he's shown enough something to come off for a HIA. That is a lot in 15 rounds. So I think the more telling statistic isn't the 2 concussions, it's the 5 HIAs that he's needed to come off for in such a short period of time. It's just that cumulative load on the brain. Now, people obviously automatically go to he's got to retire, all these kind of things. Effectively, if we look at number of concussions, like James Tedesco has had 10 or 11 that we know of, and he's still out there, playing, hasn't had concussion concerns from, I think it was early 2024 from what I remember off the top of my head. So, like it's not all about, it's not like once you hit a certain number of concussions, it's not. But what you do, and I think where I wanted to go is what you are looking for. And I think number one, it's that threshold, James. We always talk about, and I think in olden days it was kind of called, the glass jaw, when boxers got to that point where they had the glass jaw, that it only took a little knock and they were out cold. And I often refer to patients as your threshold? What is your threshold for a blow affecting you and your brain? Does it not take much for your brain to be affected? And that's quite a sure sign that, your brain's not recovering all that well. It's not at its best. And so Radley, you could argue potentially there's some, I guess some accumulation there. The other thing, and probably the most important thing, is the testing that he'll undergo behind the scenes. So with specialists, with the Roosters, those kind of things, testing all the functions to do with the brain to see how he's progressing with those. We'll obviously never find out about that. It drives it big time. And then the other thing is like mental well-being, health, how much he wants to continue playing footy. Like we've seen players get to a point where they're like, look, it concerned me too much. Like they might have been cleared to play, but they just are happy to pull up stumps because for them, they've reached a point where mentally they're not, their heart isn't in it or their mind isn't in it anymore. So yeah, I think the whole like focusing on the number of concussions, like 7, as grim as it sounds to say 7, it isn't the most like in the NRL. Like we've got guys running around in the NRL who've had more than 7. So it's not, he's hit 7, he's definitely got to take whatever. But I think it's more, 5 HIAs in 15 rounds is a lot because it means he's copped 5 heavy blows to the head. So look, it's really unpredictable. This could be anything from 1 week out and back the second week to, medical retirement and everything in between. Where my gut sort of sits is that the Roosters in the past with these kind of situations have sat guys out for like 6 weeks. And I think we're probably getting into that realm with Radley if he does decide to play on. Is kind of in that, we've seen it with multiple of those guys, Luke Keary, Boyd Cordner, those kind of guys had 6 weeks sit out. So yeah, that I guess that's probably looking like it could be possible, but we just have to wait and hear how all those because as I said, it's the testing behind the scenes that'll be the big thing, I think. But yeah, as you said, there might be some sneaky value there for a few Roosters players as well.
Yeah, it's a good one. Like, I don't know who jumps out there for the Roosters because I guess, Nat Butcher was ruled out this week with the ongoing knee concern. Egan Bush is listed here from the HIA perspective. Blake Steep's not really that cheap anymore. He's been playing pretty good minutes and mainly middle. Crichton's going to play that left edge. Siua Wong's going to play the right edge. It might be someone in like that middle rotation. It might be getting a little bit more of a look there. I guess Brandon Smith has moved on. It probably is just worth looking at like the bench construction there. Probably solidifies Naf White if he's still a Naf White owner, I guess. There might be some people out there that still maybe have him, but yeah, be one to watch for the Roosters, that's for sure, because that's very concerning for Victor Radley, that's for sure. First game of the round, Brian, was the Sharks and the Dragons. So Mawene Hiroti, who was a popular trade in this week, was ruled out with a calf injury, and then Toby Couchman from the Dragons was an ankle concern here. Toby Couchman, he's been a sneaky good Supercoach player as well. Probably not as big a base now he's on an edge, but what are we looking at ankle injury-wise, Brian?
Yeah, it looked like that typical lateral ankle sprain. So, really, really painful when it happened. I think he went down like a sack of spuds, got tended to for a bit, taped up and kind of played out the game from what I remember. So, I think they've got the bye this week coming. So I would assume coming out, unless it was somehow like a high ankle or something like that, and we didn't see the actual mechanism. I'm thinking he'll be fine coming out of it in terms of his like base and stuff like that. I assume Jayden Sullivan is back at that point. So whether that pushes Couchman back to the middle, I'm not sure. I don't know how much they like Luciano Leilua at this point and whether they want to play like a Couchman Siua kind of edge combo. But yeah, like I don't think it'll affect Couchman that much from a physical standpoint. I think it'll more be coaching decision and where he fits into that kind of thing. Hiroti with the calf. Yeah, look, like I think a lot of people were kind of taking victory laps, sort of saying, he looked a little bit, knocked around with that knee, the MCL coming back last week. I think he copped a knock to his knee and kind of looked not 100%, and then he's come out this week. And I think all of my DMs were, he's done his knee again. I think they mentioned on the on the comms he'd done his knee again. I didn't see the game live, so I went back to check it, and he did grab down pretty low. Then post-match, he had the ice pack on the calf, and it turns out it was a calf strain. So definitely wasn't a like a knee re-injury like I think a lot of people were kind of speculating on. So look at like a calf, as we've spoken about with a lot of guys, I'd hope it's minor because he did it and then he played on for like another 15 minutes after doing it. So you'd hope that it's minor. We have seen from a guy like Jacob Kiraz, who finished out a game, that it can still be a partial tear and needing to miss 4 to 6 weeks. But if it's only minor, 1 to 3 weeks, and he could be back. So yeah, we'll obviously wait to hear the scan results there. But I think, James, if you're a Hiroti owner, I think if he's going to be there, if the indication is it's minor, I'd probably hold with the hope of having him for round 18 with the buys is where I kind of sit. But anything longer than that, I'd be happy to move on, especially if someone like Talakai comes in at centre there. What are your thoughts?
You've summed it up perfectly, Brian. That's exactly the same sentence as me. I think if it's going to be longer than 18, you probably want to move, would be my call there. We'll move forward to the next game, Brian. Titans being Manly here. Another coaching masterclass here for the Manly boys, getting them up and around, the team running last. So good to see the Manly boys here. A few weird decisions there in terms of the sit v starts as well. But out of this one, big news for Manly. So Haumole Olakau'atu has been reported as a shoulder dislocation as well. The other one that might be worth just updating here, Brian, is what you put in the broadcast channel regarding Tom Trbojevic about the whispers or, the rug sweep there regarding his situation. It was interesting what Paul Kent had to say about him too, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Kenty kind of said that I think he was just mentioning offhand and said that clubs were, clubs often protect their players and smother things. And then he kind of said, like, for example, at the moment, Tom Trbojevic, he's been affected for a month by a cork, but it's actually another hamstring, and the club wanted to protect him. If they hear it's another hamstring injury for Tom, everyone loses their mind. And look, it's only come from Kenty so far, and not that he's not a reliable source, but I'd probably want it to come from a few people before we start to, go too heavily into it. But it wouldn't, the thing, and I say that from a position of it wouldn't surprise me, because we've kind of suggested or hinted at it a couple of times with our, like the only time we've seen myofascial tears in the NRL has been in the hamstring. They never stipulated specifically where the myofascial tear was, even though they said his cork was in his quad. And then he had that hamstring tightness earlier in the year that he got scans for, and there was nothing, but he missed a week. So yeah, I think at this point in time, we've spoken about it many times before. We've seen it a couple of times now. We'll field a question on him later, but I just think, not that some of the options like Scotty Drinks hasn't been going well, but I just think you just got to cut bait with Turbo. I think they've got the bye this week. I don't see why you'd be holding him through his bye. I just don't. I don't know, unless you've got 20 really good players. But I feel like this week and 19, which are the 2 weeks that he misses over the next little bit, are going to be real tough weeks to field aside. So I just don't even think he's a pod anymore at this point in time. I think cut bait is my suggestion. Before I get on to Olakau'atu, are you kind of on a similar wavelength? I mean, as president and co-president of the Tom Trbojevic fan club every preseason, it hurts me to say it, but that's kind of where I'm at with him. What about you?
Yeah, in the state of grief, I'm at acceptance now, Brian, that it's just not going to happen for us this year. So I've moved to that point. I think if you're still hanging on, I think it's probably time to cut bait and look for alternative options. Agree with you.
Yep, I agree there. Now, Olakau'atu with the shoulder dislocation, pretty brutal mechanism. And I think the one, and we'll get into biomechanic nerd chat here a little bit, but he had the mechanism where he didn't just land on an outstretched shoulder, but he kind of planted with an outstretched shoulder. And then the way he moved, it moved him into further external rotation as well, James. So it was just a whole bunch of the worst possible positions. Because to explain it to people, one of the tests that we do as physios to check, it's not the best test, but it still is a test. It's called an apprehension test, which is where you put your arm out to the side and you rotate the arm back towards your head. And it puts the arm into external rotation, and that if you've got an unstable shoulder, sometimes depending on, who you believe in terms of how accurate the test is, sometimes that can indicate that your shoulder's unstable if it, doesn't feel good and those kind of things. So, but it's not the shoulder doesn't like that position if it is unstable a lot of the time. So yeah, for him to get put into that with a guy like landing on him as well at the same time, just not good. So a lot of people were kind of saying, because the amount of pain he was in, he almost looked like he was ready to pass out at times while he's walking off the field. They're like, he's definitely going to be out for ages and those kind of things. And while pain is not good, it's also different person to person. So I don't tend to put too much stead in that I think, and not to give Siebes too much credit, mate, because we know Tony Siebes can be a bit of we're big Tony Siebes fans on the Magic Sponge Pod, but sometimes not so much. He kind of said post-match, which is pretty accurate. He's like, look, if there's any bone fracturing or anything like that, it's immediate surgery. But if it's potentially joint, like cartilage, labrum, or ligament, he could rehab for 6 weeks and come back. And that's pretty accurate. I mean, there are some labrum injuries particularly, or even some ligamentous injuries where you're not going to be able to rehab it and you're going to need a reconstruction. But either of those kind of things does give you a chance. So a lot of people are kind of looking, I just think it's going to be 6 weeks minimum because of the traumatic nature of the position that he got into, more than say the pain afterwards. I just think it's going to take some time to rehab that and strengthen it up enough to kind of send him back out there. So I would be banking on 6 weeks at a minimum. And he fits really, really firmly into the camp of people who it's 6 weeks minimum, but then that rehab process might not even be successful. He might go through 6 weeks and they go, look, we're not getting it stable enough. He's going to need immediate surgery anyway. So I think the odds are not really in his favor very well in terms of you've got one option, which is immediate surgery. The other option, which is trials rehab and it fails. And then the other option is tries rehab and it's successful, but then he's an ongoing risk of re-dislocating that shoulder again. We spoke about the likes of Dylan Lucas and us being a little bit off him a few weeks ago when he just subluxed his shoulder and all those things weren't on the table. This one here has me well and truly off Olakau'atu at this point in time. I just think he is a definite trade for me. What about you, mate?
Yeah, pretty easy one. Definite trade as well, Brian. So I don't think we need to spend more time there on Haumole's situation. There's lots of second row options, a lot of centre options. You probably have someone you can flick in between there to make that happen. Move forward to the Knights v Roosters next, Brian. So Sam Walker pre-game ruled out with a broken thumb, which is awful news considering he was due to come back from his ACL injury. Then Fletcher Sharpe was ruled out pre-game with a calf injury. Greg Marzhew, sounds like there's some intel on him being a neck and sort of radicular arm pain situation there, maybe from a discogenic issue or something of that nature due to neck. So that's one to watch there because he was one that I foolishly traded in this week, sadly. I had a pick at the litter and I chose Greg Marzhew there. So good form by me on that one. Then lucky last is KPP from the Knights with an injury situation we don't know much about, Brian, but might be a bit of a watch and wait there on KPP, right?
Yeah, so he usually plays 80 week in and week out, right? But he left the field about 5 minutes before full time, right next to the trainer. And he looked like he was pretty ginger. I remember seeing footage. I actually didn't know that last night when I saw the end of the game as I was gearing up for the Cows Dolphins. And I saw him high-fiving and chatting to Dom Young. And he just looked real ginger, as he was moving around. And I remember at the time thinking, he looks pretty. He doesn't look like he's moving very well. Didn't think anything of it. And then I got a heap of messages overnight being what's going on with KPP? I went back and had a look. There was no obvious mechanism, but definitely something to keep an eye out on. Sam Walker with a broken thumb, mate, just cannot catch a trick. We were both very excited last week to kind of, see how he went coming back into the NRL. So he'll miss at least 4 weeks at this point in time. And godsend if you're a Sandon Smith owner like myself, and I think you still are as well too.
Yeah,
so I was going to have to make some difficult decisions at hooker that I'm not going to have to make now, which is a win in a way. Fletcher Sharpe with a calf, mate. This is the thing. Like old Tony Siebes, like two of our favourites, Tony Siebes and AOB. Tony Siebes hitting us with the information about, Olakau'atu. And here we have Adam O'Brien during the week talking about gastrocnemius and soleus. I was just in heaven, mate. Like I've never had more respect for the man, because he was saying, look, it's a minor gastroc strain. If it was a soleus, we could probably push him. But gastroc, we probably can't. And that's true. Like with the gastroc, I think for people to understand, there's a few different muscles in your calf. We talk about your calf, but there's a few in there, with the two main ones being your gastroc, which are the two outer ones, and the soleus, which is the inner one right near, like on the inner side of your shin bone. The soleus is more like slow twitch, so more for like, I guess, long distance running kind of thing. Like I think we spoke about the physio works at my work who had a calf tear a couple of weeks ago. He's a triathlete and he had a soleus injury because, it's used a lot more in those activities. Whereas gastroc is all fast twitch fiber. It is explosion. That's what you need it for. And obviously that's rugby league. So this is where you had Jacob Kiraz, who came back. He had a partial tear in his calf, but he only missed 2 weeks, and that was because it was in the soleus. So he could kind of push it and come back a bit quicker. Whereas a partial tear in the gastroc, you're looking at like 6 weeks minimum, like around that kind of range. Thankfully for Fletcher Sharpe, even though his is in the gastroc, it's not a partial tear, it's very minor. Adam O'Brien said, we're definitely expecting to have him back next week. The only thing I'll say with calves, like I'm not counting my chickens at this point in time. I'm probably still with Adam O'Brien saying he's very, very confident. I'd put it at like 75%. I am confident with him. But the only thing that I always see with calves is that that rehab process can take a little bit longer than expected, because those symptoms can kind of linger around. So definitely something with him where I'm more confident than not that he'll play next week, but I'm not 100%. I'm baking some doubt into, certainly from a SuperCoach perspective, my trade plans. Greg Marzhew, he came from the field. He looked horrific at full time. He was like holding his arm. He had to be helped from the ground. Didn't look good. I went back and looked at the mechanism. It was very blocked. There were a lot of bodies in and around. There didn't look to be any shoulder kind of issue. And I often go straight to shoulder when I see guys holding their arms like that, because a lot of times commentary will say wrist because he's holding his wrist, but it's actually stabilizing the shoulder. I had a look and I didn't see massive shoulder mechanism. So I'm like, I don't think it's like an AC joint or a dislocation or something like that. Maybe he has in behind those bodies got like an arm caught up and like fractured his wrist or something like that. But we've actually found out through someone with a few connections at the Knights. I won't mention him because I haven't checked whether I can name drop as yet. But he found out that it's a neck disc issue for Greg, which would explain like the innocuous mechanism where there wasn't much going on through here. But obviously his neck got moved a certain way, pinched the nerve in his neck, and the reason he was grabbing his wrist because his hand went numb and he was getting pins and needles and numbness in his hand. So he was kind of like trying to move that. He was still in a lot of pain today by all accounts. But I think the one thing here is that when I started the day, or when I first looked at it thinking this could be a fracture, and that's like, 6 weeks minimum, while a bulging disc in the neck and being in severe pain isn't ideal, it still gives him a chance of playing next week, which obviously a fracture doesn't. I think it's a pretty volatile situation in that he could play next week, or he could potentially even need surgery and you have the Keaon Koloamatangi kind of treatment where he's out for 12 weeks. I mean, that's an extreme example. I think your most common would be either back next week or miss like a week or two to let that disc settle down, that nerve settle down in the neck. But yeah, mate, I guess I'll throw both at you, Fletcher Sharpe and Greg Marzhew. How are you? I think Marzhew probably a wait and see at this point in time. And then Fletcher Sharpe, you just keep him if he's named and good to go next week, probably. Hey.
Yeah, they both feel yuck when you really need 18 this week, Brian, don't they? I guess I traded in Greg last week, so it'd be a watch and wait. Fletcher Sharpe, as soon as you hear gastroc, you think it's probably unlikely to be a week, isn't it, to be honest? So they both don't feel good. I think you need to watch them all the way up until their game time's on, Brian, because I think that could be a situation that changes very, very, very frequently, would be my takeaway there. What are you doing with Fletcher Sharpe? Are you going to be trading out, or you think maybe just watch and wait?
I'm very tempted to go Fletcher Sharpe to Herbie. Like super. Like I think the only thing that'll stop that, because even if he's named, he's not playing 18. Like I think this week though, and we'll talk about it in SuperCoach Corner, I just need bodies. Like so I'm going to trade out 2 guys who are injured. And so it's like if he isn't named, I think I'll trade him because the other guy is Keaon, who we'll talk about in a second. He'd be my other option to trade for, say, a Herbie and flip a few guys up or down. But yeah, like let's say in an ideal world, I've got like 19, 20 players next week somehow, like say a few Origin backups, and I've got the option to go Sharpe to Herbie for only like 50K, I think it'll be. I'll do it. I'll put it that way. I'm that confident because just with the gas drop kind of lingering around, I'd rather a Herbie going ham and only having to spend 50K on it, with the thought that, Sharpe's going to go back to 6, where probably, not quite as good as 1. Still a gun, don't get me wrong, but I'd just rather Herbie. So, I don't think I'm going to be in that position. I think I'm just going to have to, take whatever scores I can get next week. But let's just say all the cards fall my way, that I'll be making that trade for sure.
Yeah, and I think with end of season team in mind, I would probably take Lomax and definitely Kraz and probably Herbie over Fletcher Sharpe. So I think if you can make a Fletcher Sharpe move to one of them, I think that's a trade that you could make. I honestly would do that if I was in that situation scenario, and I still may do that myself, actually. We'll move on to the Cowboys versus the Finns here, Brian. So all the injury brigade for the Dolphins here, just a list. So Dan Saifiti's looking at shoulder surgery. Tommy Gilbert's looking at, pec and shoulder surgery. Maxi Plath's been confirmed as an ACL. So he'll go ACL rehab after his MCL heal. So he's going to be in a brace for a few weeks for his MCL to heal up. And then unfortunately for Jason Taumalolo, he was out for 5 weeks with a calf injury, and he re-injured that in the warm-up, Brian. So he's going to be out for a little bit longer. I haven't heard anything on the severity there. We may not know anything yet.
No, the Cowboys are pretty mum as it is. But yeah, we've had heaps of this lately where like poor blokes, like just getting back from things and then boom, gone again. So calf, like it is, re-injury risk is quite low. And especially with Taumalolo, it sounds like they left him an extra week too, because they were going to bring him back the week before and they said, no, we'll make the most of it. So make sure of it. Leave him a week. So yeah, the poor bugger. The thing we always say with recurrent strains is that, if it's a grade 1 and usually that'd be, 1 to 3 weeks, you probably extend it out a little bit and it's probably 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 weeks just because there's a recurrent strain. If it's a partial tear, usually 3 to 6 weeks, it's probably now like 4 to 8 weeks, a little bit longer. Expect a very gradual approach to his recovery this time round. Mate, the Finns boys, very quick shoulder surgery for Dan Saifiti. Finally had that confirmed after all the back and forth. Tommy Gilbert, the poor bastard, has gone in for a pec repair. While they're in there, they've checked the shoulder joint and found, you've actually got a big labrum tear in there as well. So he's got to have a Rico. So, he could have been back. And it sounded like a joke when I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, but for the Finns final run, he could have been back, James, because I think we're going to go on a finals run. I'm like, God damn it. He could have been back, but now he won't be back because, shoulder Rico plus a pec repair. The poor just rough. And then, Max Plath, ACL, MCL. So he's done both. To talk about with it, MCL has a really good prospects for healing on its own. To be honest, some of the evidence, so does ACL, but we still haven't got anyone in the NRL who's trialing the non-operative ACL. We will one day, hopefully. So what they do is they put it in a brace. They let the MCL heal up really, really well. And the reason they do that, and this is an interesting one for people who don't work in this kind of area, is that let's say you don't want to repair the MCL, but you do want to repair the ACL. If you do that, once you've had ACL surgery, we want to get the knee moving. Like as soon as you've had your ACL surgery, we don't want to go crazy. like within pain limits, but you want to, and one thing you really want to get, James, is you want to get that knee straight, right? Like after an ACL surgery, you really want to get that knee straight as quickly as you possibly can within pain limits and those kind of things. One of the worst positions for an MCL that is partially torn and is trying to heal is fully straight, because it isn't an optimum position for healing. So if you don't give that MCL time to heal before repairing the ACL, then you come out of surgery and you've got conflicting goals. Like with the MCL, you want to keep it within a specific range of movement to allow it to heal. But with the ACL, you want to get it moving. So that's why they approach it with, let's put the knee in a brace. We'll restrict his range of movement to a certain degree, and usually it's like 20 to 60 degrees or something like that, to just keep it in that optimum healing kind of range. Let it heal for 2 to 4 weeks, and then go in and repair the ACL. So then when it comes out of ACL surgery, you can really push that range of movement. Have I missed anything there? I know my fellow physio nerd, or am I pretty good? Am I not going to get too many abusive DMs?
No, you nailed it, mate. The only thing I have seen recently, just from a public health setting, is there's not a lot of prerequisite to have range of motion brace for MCL. Is interesting. So they're just saying, well, you'll just unlock it. Range of motion is tolerated, so they're not super strict on that anymore. But I think that's a fairly recent thing. So it might be a bit of a watch and wait. I guess in Maxi Plath's situation, he's a double ligament injury, so there would be more reason to do a range of motion brace. But if it's an isolated MCL for those playing at home, yeah, they don't always have to go on a range of motion brace, which is an interesting thing, which I was of the opinion a while ago that it did. But yeah, and seeing some people coming through orthopedic clinic, then there's quite a few of them say, no need for range of motion brace. It's range is tolerated. So long as they're not grossly unstable, then play all the way on. So that's how they do get managed a little bit more as well. Last game of the round was the Rabbitohs v the Bulldogs here. So for the Bunnies, who, again, we say it every week, can't really take a trick when it comes to big guys getting injured. Keaon Koloamatangi, super popular for SuperCoach. Looks like a fractured eye socket. I think Wayne Bennett was even insinuating that in the presser this afternoon. Jye Grey with a broken thumb. That's bad news for the Bunnies as well. Then Jayden Sullivan with a calf concern. Man, oh man, the Bunnies, Brien. There's really no good news to come out of this either, is there, unfortunately for them and their injury list and their casualty ward?
Mate, they just looked like they were getting over the hump, and then, copped 3 here, especially Keaon. Like, he's been huge for them over the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure for a lot of super coaches out there as well. So, look, we haven't had confirmation on the eye socket. Mate, a bit of an interesting one, and like a lot of the messages that I received was people saying, oh, you only got poked in the eye, it's fine. Mate, I saw the replay just before I posted it up. He got an elbow straight to the side of the head.
Yeah,
so I don't know what.
hey.
Yeah, I'm not sure what people were talking about with the poke to the eye. I didn't see. Look, I won't criticize people that is, because I didn't see the game. So I was asking for a bit of information, but I had a few people saying, because I put eye socket fracture question mark, and people started getting at me. It's not an eye socket fracture, you idiot. It was just a poke in the eye. Stop trying to scare people or something. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't look like a poke in the eye.
He got cracked into next week, honestly. It was just accidental, but big force.
100%. So the good news, even if it is fractured, what I will say, we have had returns in 3 weeks, which is what I put in my post. But for those listeners of The Sponge, you will know that a return in 3 weeks means missing 2 weeks, returning on the 3rd week. Why that is really important for any super coaches listening is that miss 2 weeks, 16, 17, back for 18 is a possibility if it is a simple eye socket fracture. If it's more complex, if it's got, multiple fracture sites, if it's displaced something, then we're talking, 6 weeks beyond. And hopefully we'll hear about that over the next couple of days. But there is a chance. We had Reece Walsh. He came back, that brutal eye socket fracture he had last year where he ran into, I think was it Taylor May or whoever it was last year?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So he came back in 3 weeks. So he missed 2 weeks, came back on the 3rd. We've had multiple instances of that. I think the biggest one I can remember was Peter Hiku. He was even pushing to return at week 2. So missed 1 week, come back the 2nd, and it only got ruled out right at the last minute a couple of years ago. Eye socket fractures weirdly are ones that can have really quick recovery. So we'll talk about my trade plans in SuperCoach Corner, as I said, but my approach at the moment is, unless Keaon is like definitely out for 6 weeks, and we hear that, my approach is going to be to hang on to him until the team lists are named in round 18, if I can. If I have no other people to trade this week and I kind of have to make up numbers, then maybe I'll do that. But ideally, I'd like to hold him to round 18, because I think there's a red hot chance that if there's a simple eye socket fracture, that he could really, really accelerate and come back at that round 18 mark. Mate, Jye Grey with a broken thumb, he's going to miss, 4 to 6 weeks. Jayden Sullivan with the calf, we'll wait to hear on severity on that in terms of recovery. But yeah, Keaon, mate, how are you looking at him? Am I kind of off my rocker for holding on to him, or are you happy to sit and wait too?
Yeah, sit and wait. Origin's on the line there as well, so I figure if he's a possibility of getting in for that game 3 team, then getting back in 3 weeks puts him in line for that, give or take. It'll be touch and go, won't it? It'll be pretty close.
Well, he'd have to come back in 2 to because 3 would
be
be Origin week.
round 18.
So,
yeah.
So,
It'd
but
be
I
really touch and go.
and the Bunnies need him, mate. Like the Bunnies, like
They do.
and
they run
if
14s.
he comes back, he's a captaincy option that week too. So I just I'm pushing my own case, but I
agree with you. I think it's a really good shout. But if we do get any word that it's a minimum 4 sort of type prospect, then it's just move on to someone else and find a different option. So that'd be the sort of takeaway there. Be interesting to watch Jayden Sullivan, mate. I think there's a history there with high grade hamstring concerns for Jayden Sullivan, isn't there? So it'll be a bit of a watch and wait there. He's probably not as relevant compared to other players though. So lastly, big calf injury of the week was Mitch Moses getting ruled out from the Blues. Looks like a round 21 return as well there, Brien. So probably in that moderate to high grade range for his calf injury for Mitch Moses, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they said moderate, so partial tear, and I'd say a gastroc for those, who were listening before. So, yeah, I think they said 6 weeks, but could be as little as 4. So, but they probably won't rush him. I had a few people ask like which calf it was in terms of could it be a compensation from the foot? It potentially could be. We just don't have enough information because it happened at Origin training, and then we didn't see it happen on the field, so we can tell which calf it is in relation to the foot. So yeah, it's hard to say, but yeah, 4 to 6 weeks. So poor old Para, they can't take a trick either.
No, they definitely can't. But we'll just wait with bated breath for the Queensland Maroons just coming down with the flu in the next few days, Brien, because we're going to need all the flu games we can get out of the Queensland boys if we're going to get across the line. It's looking like not a good prospect there. All right, injuries done. Let's move on to the questions there. Thank you again for everyone submitting these through the broadcast channel. First one's about Tommy Turbo, friend of the show. This person's a recent Tom Trbojevic purchaser for SuperCoach purposes. As a bit of a point of difference, Hail Mary play, are you guys bullish on him still? We said before we definitely weren't. Brien, has your opinion changed on that?
No, not in the last 3 minutes. I was going to save my Tommy Turbo hot takes for this question, but yeah, I just think this guy's only just brought him in. I'd still trade him out. There's not too many fullbacks absolutely killing it at the moment, but I just think like Teddy and Paps, absolutely. If you don't have either of those, you need to move to one of them, move heaven and earth. But I wouldn't even mind, like, if you're not super high on drinky, like going to like a Jaden Campbell at fullback, for example. If you I just think there's got to be better options than Turbo at this point in time. He's got 2 buys in the next 4 or 5 weeks. Just no, thank you. What about you?
Yeah, it's a firm no from me as well. I feel like we've done a big backflip on this, Brien. Like we slurp this up every single. I only said 3 weeks ago if Tom Trbojevic is named, he's in your SuperCoach team, and now I'm like, nah.
Yeah, I'll say I
feel bad for him. I was
hesitant. I was hesitant at least a little bit. I didn't jump full in on but you were in. I did. Yeah, snorkel was on and you were jumping in the deep end.
Sure. Yeah, I was absolutely soaked for it. No, absolutely, and it didn't work out for me. But anyway, you live and you learn. It's
mate,
all good. You move on.
If the worst crime that you commit this year is putting faith in Tommy Turbo, then I'm not convicting you of anything, mate. The judge is
getting upstairs into heaven, 100%. There's no crime committed there whatsoever. Question number 2, Brien. Could Sevilla Tamale be back before the 12-week mark? It probably seems unlikely given what we've heard about his knee situation, doesn't it? But if he's missing a surgery, he might be.
Yeah, so like I think the gist is that he will need surgery. If he doesn't need surgery, he could be back in 6 weeks. So yes, but the suggestion from Canberra is that he will need surgery. There's a few different surgeries you can get for a patella that needs to be stabilized or a kneecap that needs to be stabilized. They can like repair the ligament on the inner side of the kneecap. They can release the tissue on the outer side of the kneecap. They can chop off a bone and move the bone around. Like there's a whole bunch of different things they can do. The quickest we've seen from any of those surgeries is 11 weeks. So maybe you might get a week if he needs, but if he needs surgery, I think 12 weeks is pretty guaranteed, I'd say.
Yeah, I wouldn't be holding on in draft formats either if you think about holding him and stashing him on the bench there, to be honest. Third question is about Pete Mamouzelos. Is he due back from injury soon? He's been missing since about round 9, I think, Brien, hasn't he, Pete Mamouzelos?
Yes, I'm literally just looking that up as we talk. So he last played round 9. So yeah, look, I think like my initial sort of thing was 6 to 8 weeks, sort of in that range. So we're bang on 6 weeks now. So yeah, I haven't heard any specific news, but I'd be expecting in the next couple of weeks. He's the guy who I get the most questions about week in and week out. There are either some massive Bunnies fans or some, I don't know whether people are holding him in draft or what they're doing, but yeah.
A lot of random Souths fans, I reckon.
Yeah, maybe. But in terms of is it worth still holding on to him? Maybe. But then you've got Brandon Smith as well there too. So yeah, from a draft position, I think Hooker's pretty grim, but yeah, like, you've got the likes of Kurt Donahue has popped up from the Finns as a pretty good option at hooker. So like I'd rather a Riley Smith than a Mamouzelos, for example, kind of in that kind of range. So yeah, it depends what's on your free agency kind of waivers, but yeah, I'm not super high on him because I think Brandon Smith's going to be floating in and around too.
Yeah, that's a fair call. If you've held him this long, maybe hold on, but there's got to be someone that emerges as a hooker sometime soon. So I think you just got to sort of take a punt and see who's going to 80. There's very few 80-minute hookers going around at the moment, though, Ryan, isn't there? That's a big challenge that we've got at the moment with the position. Question number 4, what's going on with Nat Butcher? He was a late rule out with his knee injury this week. Do we have any other updates on Nat Butcher?
Mate, I reached out to my Roosters contact and got nothing back, so I'm not sure. This is a weird situation for an MCL to kind of be named. If you remember, he was named before the bye and got ruled out like last minute as well. So I don't know whether it's the Roosters playing silly buggers or whether it's legit. But yeah, I'm lost with this one, so I'm not. Hopefully, I'll hear back at some point.
Yeah, good shout. Would you hold or drop Kale Iro for draft formats? The round 26 is the grand final. It's going to be touch and go, isn't it, when he comes back from that pec concern?
You'd have to be a lock for top 4 for me. And you would also have to be really happy with the rest of your team because there is a chance, like we've seen guys return in 10 weeks from a pec before. So he suffered his in round 14 last week.
Yep.
So he could be back in round 24. So yeah, I think if you're locked in to top 4, if you're really confident, then yeah, he's not the worst bench stash. But yeah, I'm not jumping up and down about it. What about you?
I don't know. It's a grand final round 26. Like if your team's stomping, then maybe. I guess if the rest of your team looks good and you don't play the major buys, then maybe hang on. But it's a long time to stash someone away who may not come back at their best. You got to also remember he had a massively hot try scoring streak. There's every chance he just comes back to earth for a week or two. You never quite know. Like I think you might find a centre wing that emerges before Kale Iro. I think that'd be the way I'd look at it between now and then. Very last question. There was someone on Twitter that said Luke Cavell was the first and last person from an NRL perspective to have the Lars ACL surgery, which is like the artificial graft. Why hasn't it been used again, Brian? This is a good little nerdy question for the physios amongst us.
Yeah, so someone asked me on Twitter like about Lars and Luke Cavell, and I just offhand, like it's not specific, but I said, oh, look, he was one of the first and probably one of the last to have Lars ACL surgery because, yeah, he was the first, but I think like Anthony Tupou was another one for big NRL heads there. There was maybe one or two more, but yeah, with the Lars, it was a synthetic ligament, so it's not like a ligament from your own tissue or even from other biologic tissue. It's like literally a synthetic rope that kind of goes in there and acts as your ACL. Two things that had massive failure rate, like above, I think it was above 30%. So 1 in 3 were tearing and going again. And then the longer term implications, which obviously they didn't know when they first started using them, but as they kind of did more and more study down the track, was that they found that the actual Lars graft was breaking down. And like when it was breaking down, it was like wearing away the cartilage as well in the knee joint. So yeah, like a couple of components there. Like I have people ask me all the time about these kind of things, like what's going on with the ACL surgeries. You know, got to mention our friends Arthrex here, like they're doing pretty, and I'm sure a lot of other surgical companies are as well, but Arthrex specifically doing like the ACL repair stuff with the internal brace, which is like, it's like a little, once again, a little synthetic cord that synthetic or tape, they more call it. It's been tolerated really well in other places in the body, like the rotator cuff and those kind of things, hasn't broken down and caused different, issues. And from the studies that I've seen from them, the failure rate's been really good. So they're using a lot in like younger athletes because they're the ones who have that really high, re-injury rate. And yeah, like I've seen in one study, I think it was 12% failure rate without the internal brace, and it was 7% without. So cut of a similar population kind of cut that re-injury risk in half. So yeah, I think the difference there is like they're trying to get away from using the whole ligament as like an artificial thing, which is what Lars was. Whereas something like the internal brace with Arthrex, it is just a piece of tape that runs alongside either the ACL repair or the ACL reconstruction. So it's just to kind of reinforce it almost. So like interesting stuff. I will mention once again, any healthcare professionals who are listening, we have an event coming up with Arthrex very soon that I'll be involved with. So hopefully we've got more details about that to come in a few weeks' time. But James, have I missed anything there that cover most of it, you think?
No, that's it. I can't think of any other interesting tidbits or other pointers to add to that, Brian. So good stuff on the summary there. Next question. This is very dribbly, but it's very, very good. For those that weren't playing along, there's a video that Brian put up the other day on the socials about a guy doing the AFL coin toss who seemingly managed to tear his hamstring, I suppose, for lack of a better expression, mid coin toss. Like this guy was barely even moving. It was one of the wildest things I've ever seen. And I think there was an interview the day later and he put a photo up of it with pretty significant bruising in his hamstring region. So the question is, how did the guy manage to pull his hamstring here? Was it tightness? Was it no warm up? What other dribbly areas can we go into with this one, Brian? Because this was one of the more bizarre things I've ever seen. That was a genuine head scratcher. I have never seen anything like this, genuinely.
Mate, I think getting injured mid-toss is never a good place to be. Like mid-toss, you just that's not when you want to suffer an injury at the best of times. Look, mate, like I obviously was G'ing up at the time, having a bit of fun with it. What I honestly thought it was, I won't try and claim that I thought he had torn his hamstring at the time. I genuinely thought it was like a sciatic nerve, like back spasm kind of thing. I've had some myself. I've got old man back where every now and then I'll get like a sciatic referral down my left side. Where just doing random stuff. Like one time I was literally just walking in a straight line across the kitchen and I just felt it twing and I got like that referral down the leg, down my hamstring, and I kind of grabbed my glute and down and I went, oh my God. And so I just thought that's all it is. He's got a little sciatic referral, like little disky kind of thing in his back that's kind of tightened up a little bit. For him to post that photo, like when I saw the news thing the next day of him, like, and good sport, like G'ing it up hard,
Yes,
which
yeah.
I love. Like, I'm probably going to be out for 6 or 7 more tosses. That is absolutely amazing gear. Like, just 10 out of 10, no notes kind of stuff. But you and I were talking off air. Like, I've never seen anything like that in terms of such a low force, low velocity mechanism to have significant bruising. Like the next morning had significant bruise. Like our suspicion is that he had already torn the hamstring previously and came in to the coin toss with a pre-existing hamstring tear with bruising, and he's just tweaked it as he's gone. But like, you don't want to ruin the goodness of the story. I just don't see how physically he could have torn his hamstring doing it that way. I mean, maybe he's a big Magic Sponge listener. He can reach out and set the record straight. But man, if his hamstring went like that, then oh boy, connective tissue disorder or something, mate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't help the yarn, because the yarn's so good of like, oh, here's this guy and he's probably like, early mid-50s, say, let's like just put a rough number on it. And everyone's just like, oh, mate, as soon as you get over 30, this stuff just happens. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. This doesn't just happen. Your body just doesn't go twang with the most innocuous, limited force you can imagine. Like, this guy was barely even walking. He literally, when people toss the coin, you take a step just to get your balance when you move your arm up in the air. That's all he did. And he's could have pulled up short and he's like limped away from it. But I really want to see the pre-walk up to the coin toss. I want to see if there was a pre-existing, gait disturbance there, or a limp or a failing.
Yes,
And like,
this
is
is the
there
area.
here we go. Is there an intelligent gait pattern there for the physios at home? Is there a guy that looks like he's injured going up there? But mate, it's just very dribbly, very funny. But to your point that you made about him just being a good sport about it and just geeing up, I am going to be missing 6 to 7 tosses. That's so good. It's just epic areas, and I think that's the Aussie larrikin that we all love and all see and love in people in that sort of situation and scenario there. So very, very good. All right, next question, Brien, we're going across codes here to the cricket. So Steve Smith had sort of an open fracture of his little finger there, I think, in that slips catch that he put down. Will he need surgery? And then what are his chances of playing the West Indies series? I guess my take on this is like, why on earth does Steve Smith need to play the Windies? We need him fit and firing for the Ashes, baby. That's what we need.
Yeah, so I think it was a dislocation. So he avoided a fracture, avoided surgery as well, but he'll be in a splint, like a little splint for 8 weeks is what he said, maybe a little bit less. Obviously when you have the dislocation and it sticks out, there's probably going to be some ligament damage there, and he's probably got some pretty nasty ligament damage. But I think for NRL purposes, for example, you often see guys come back pretty quickly from this, like in a week or 2 weeks, because they just buddy tape it. They just tape it to the finger next to it, and you'll wear a splint all week and then probably take it off for the game and then put the splint back on, those kind of things. Whereas for cricket, like say Steve Smith is out there scoring a 300 against West Indies and batting for 3 days, you don't want him out of the splint for that amount of time. So if he's going to play in the West Indies, he's going to have to do it with a splint on. Like my thing is, can he play? Absolutely, he can play. I'm much more on your wavelength of like, should he play? And my answer would be no. Like, why? Like, just let the finger heal. I can almost guarantee he's going to play, like by the look of things, the way he's talking, and he's a real competitor and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just don't see. Yeah, I'd get him right for the Ashes and just let the Windies be. Like, yeah, I'm totally there with you.
Look, the only thing I just jumped into my mind there for the cricket sickos, I guess because it was his right little finger, and I guess if you're, a cricketer and your bottom hand is your right hand, he's probably not going to need to wrap around with his little finger too much to grip, because you're going to be, a bit top hand heavy for the most part, especially at the elite level. So it might not be a thing that
except if
really
you and me,
inhibits his
James.
play.
We're
Well,
very
yeah, I'm
bottom
all
hand.
bottom hand, baby. Just leveraging it over to cow corner. There's just like, there's a lot of space over there between mid on and deep mid wicket. I might just hoik it over into there. But it's one that may not have a lot of technical fallout there for Steve Smith. But he's got some autistic tendencies there with the technique anyway. So that might be enough just to put him on tilt. So you never quite know what you're going to get there. But it'll be a little bit of a watch and wait. I agree with you. I think we need to get him right for the Ashes, hopefully, for him doing the business against England this summer. Next question, Brian, is about Sam Kerr in the other football code. She had ACL surgery about 18 months ago and she's still not playing. What's the update about Sam Kerr there? I haven't heard any news on this.
Yeah, I was looking into it. She had another surgery. They called it complications, but they said it's not complications directly related to a knee. I think, like, before I even heard about the second surgery, I think it was like all the court stuff. Like I think, her rehab probably wasn't that great during that time, those kind of things. So that probably set her back. But yeah, it sounds like she's had to have a second surgery. So that's the reason why, is she's still recovering. And they haven't revealed what that surgery is. So a bit of mystery there.
She had a baby as well, I think. Her and a partner.
Partner had a baby, yeah.
Well,
Yep.
she's still doing some parenting there, so that'll rock and roll you as well. If you want to just add another stressor to the mix, you and me have both been through that a couple of times, or the other people playing at home. But yeah, interesting sort of times there for Sammy Kerr. Next one, is Cody Nikorima the modern day Stacey Jones? This is obviously a question that's insinuating a yes as the answer here, Brian. After what can only be described as a perfect 10 performance the other night for the Finns. Hey.
Yeah, mate. Shout out to Nick Campton, friend of the show. Wonderful journalist is Nick. Probably the best in the game, in my opinion. It's certainly
Legit,
the best journalist anyway. Read his stuff if you don't already. He messaged me when Cody scored that final try, and he said a rugby league week 10 from Cody Walker. And I'm like, you preaching to the choir, Nick. So I'm a big Cody guy. I put the story up on my Instagram or on Twitter. And you are you've copped well and truly a Cody rant from me over the years. Like, I'm just a big Cody guy. I love the way that Cody played, even when he was coming off the bench for the Bronx. Just look, horrible defender, but just exciting. Like when he used to come on at 14 or 17 for the Bronx and he'd just be nipping in around the ruck. I used to feed you boys about it. Like I just was so high on him week in and week out, just saying. And then when Hunty left and then they were keeping Milf, I was India about, Cody at 250 is amazing. And it's just so good because I copped a lot over the years to now have him at the Finns. And not only is at the Finns killing it, mate, he beat out Milford for the 6th job because Milford was at the Finns and he no longer is. So yeah, I just love Cody. That's an old school. I even went to the effort, I don't know whether you remember, of like going to China and getting like a screen printed Broncos jersey with Nikorima number 14 on the back in the day. So being a Cody since day one guy, love him to death. So Cody, I'm sure you're listening. You president of your fan club right here. Can't.
Yeah, fins up. Brian, I would argue, what attribute about Cody is your favorite attribute? It's got to be the show and go. When you think about Cody, like he might have one of the better show and goes that rugby league has ever seen. Is that an overstatement? Because I don't think
just
it is.
0 to 10. His 0 to 10 speed is insane.
Yeah.
Like that's what I used to love, is when he's nipping in around the ruck and he would just from a standing start, and he still got it. Like he still does it even now. And he'd be I assume he's in his 30s. Like he just is so quick. That first 10 meters, he is off and I love it. He just, I think that's what attracted me to him. And as part of that is the show and go, right? So yeah, but I just think that 0 to 10, and when he throws a step in there a little goosey, it's not at SJ levels, but it's pretty bloody close.
Yeah, it's such a good point, isn't it? But he's had a heck of a career as well when you think about it. So he's 31 just gone. So geez, there's still a fair bit of footy in there for Cody as well. Plays at 174 and 82 kilos. So that's only my specs really. Like well, I'm not a big unit, but it's cool to see him do the business there, Cody. And he's played over 200 first grade games, 18 games for the Kiwis. He's had a great career there, Cody, and hopefully more to come. He's lighting up the scoreboard for the Finns at the moment, Brian, that's for sure. Lucky last for the questions. Origin predictions. What do you think is going to happen in game 2 over in Perth, Brian? What do you think is going to happen? What do you want to happen? Is probably the way I'll split that down.
Yeah, so I think want to happen. You have to, like, it's obvious. You would love Billy to somehow prove all of us wrong and Queensland to win. But yeah, I just think I just can't see it. Like even something as simple as Christian Wolf coming out and questioning Hammer starting on the wing. He was kind of like, yeah, well, he plays fullback for us and he plays really well at center. Not really sure how he'd go at wing, like why they'd be playing. Like, and I'm like, far out, man. Like, even you've got the guys, club coach, Christian Wolf, proud Queenslander as well, as far as I'm aware. Like, yeah, it's not good air. Like, we've definitely, and look, like, I think someone commented on the YouTube video, like, have faith, boys. Like, you got to show faith. And like, I think a big thing about being a fan, I believe this about the Finns, I believe this about anyone. Like, if you're a fan of any team, that does not mean you can't, like, give them shit when then, like, because I would be more than happy if they prove us wrong. Like, if they come out and absolutely wallop New South Wales on Wednesday, fantastic. I will take, because I'm wrong about so much stuff, James, that then doesn't excite me. It's like, I like, take the Turbo thing, for example, right? You could say, you get it wrong about being high on Turbo and then he hurts his hamstring injury again. That doesn't make me happy at all. But this, I would be wrong and I would be very happy. I would be very happy because Queensland wins game 2. So I'm more than happy to be wrong, very wrong on this. So I'm kind of hedging my bets a little bit. But yeah, I just don't see it happening. I think New South Wales are going to win pretty comfortably, is my general gist. And I just think the memes are, we said off air that the funniest one was like, how the rest of the world sees Trent Loiero, and it was just a photo of Trent Loiero, and then how Billy Slater sees Trent Loiero as a photo of, like, prime Sam Burgess. And I think if you're at the point where you're getting memed, your coaching career is in a bit of trouble. I know that's a very silly thing to put it down to, but yeah, I just I'm hoping Queensland can get it done, but I'm not confident, mate. And I think by all of our conversations that we have daily on the issue, that you're the same.
Yeah, look, what do I want to happen? It's Queensland win for sure. I don't know how it happens. Look, the only thing I can see is just Munster or Ponga or Dearden have the game of their lives and we somehow get it done. Outside of that, I just don't really see a way that we can outgun New South Wales in any spot or any position. And what do I think is going to happen? I think we lose pretty handsomely, is how it feels. I just can't, like I said, I can't see a way that we've got the game plan, the structure, or the coaching. I still think the fact that Cameron Smith isn't involved in this setup is a huge shortcoming, and we haven't looked any good since he left the coaching setup in 2023, I believe, was when he left the setup, and we've lost. Now we've lost 3 games on the trot, and this game, I think we're probably staring down another loss. Anytime you lose 4 games in a row in a a type of series like Origin is, where the teams are very, very close, that's bad news. That means you're way, 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 way off the pace. When you look at the setup of the teams, Hammer on a wing, that's a bad idea. Val at left centre, that's a mismatch. It doesn't solve our yardage issues from our back three either. We still got Cotter on an edge. We've got, less impact in the middle. We still haven't got a situation where we can rotate a hooker through there and just live and breathe off the hooker, because Harry Grant's going to have to play big minutes, and we've got a guy playing 14 who, credit to Kurt Mann for making the team, but he's been a journeyman up until now, and he's never been a throbber. So, again, unless he really comes of age, I can't really see it. I don't know how we can win this, Brian, to be honest. That's where I'll end it up. I think we've talked long enough about that, but it's very concerning. And I guess the big thing is, which is underrated, is just how much we've missed Cam Smith, because this team just hasn't looked anywhere near, it hasn't looked prepared, has it, Brian? Really, with the last, 4 games that we've seen going back to the start of last year through till now, they haven't really looked that prepared and that buttoned up. And the combinations haven't been there compared to New South Wales with Madge and what Laurie Dale's been able to do so far.
No, I'm well on board with that, mate. We won't dwell on it too much. We'll talk about the aftermath next week. What do you got for Supercoach this week? Bit of a very topsy-turvy week, I think. Next week or this week coming, I think it's just going to all be about trying to get 18 players on the park. So how are you going to do it?
Good question. So I've got more dramas than answers as it stands at the moment. So I only got 756 this week. I looped James Tedesco, and I was lucky because he was my highest scorer this week. So I traded in, get this for the trade-ins, Greg Marzhew, Scott Drinkwater, and Lawson and centre wing. So 3 absolute swing and misses there. I traded out Tino. I went early on Tino, which is probably a bit ballsy, but I thought, no, I might just try to antipod him. And then I trade out Lehigh Hopewadi and Sevilla Tamale as well. So Tino, Lehigh, and Tamale. I've got, obviously the issues with Sharpe and Marzhew this week. Trades are going to be tricky. I might only get 17 or 18, depending on how it goes. So I feel pretty bad this week. I need to still trade Christian Tuiupolotu out. Maybe Marzhew out this week. Sharpe and Keaon Koloamatangi are the other options. Sandon Smith, I'm still just going to have to roll with him now because I was like, I might be able to upgrade him at hooker, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. So I guess the ones I'm looking at this week, Jarrell Skelton at price, he's going to be in the mid-4s. I think he's a possible keeper as well. So I'm trading a Jarrell Skelton 100% this week. The other one, might be Lomax, might be Herbie. I don't know. I've got plenty of money to play with. I've got 508 grand in the bank. The other one is, I might just use my last boost this week, Brian. So I might just have to use it because I might not have a full quota of 18 players. So I might just have to bite the bullet and go big on the boost front this week. So it might be Lomax and it might be, Carraz is on the bye. Who else is going to be on my final set? Maybe Lomax and Herbie might be the way I might have to go around it. So we'll have to see how that goes. I wouldn't begrudge anyone taking a punt on Jack Bostock as it stands, Brian. So he's neg 67 break even. I think he's going to be pricing at about 520, I think, or 510. So he's not cheap, but tell you what, the way the Dolphins are going, they're on a dead set heater. So I wouldn't begrudge anyone for going to Jack Bostock, even though we've talked a little bit disparagingly about Jack Bostock at the start of the year for not the best performances, but 4 tries is 4 tries and 160 points is 160 SuperCoach points. So if you need to chase a little bit of money and get some good buy coverage out of a Finn, he's a good one to look at. I reckon Jacob Carraz is going to be a must in round 17. And I still like Jayden Sullivan as a point of difference in round 17 as well if he's back from the high ankle there. So that's sort of as far as I've got this week, Brian. But yeah, injuries are starting to stack up here and it is getting a little bit tricky to negotiate, especially at centre wing. I might have to make 3 trades this week genuinely to make a full quota. So that's where I'm at the moment. So drama times. You went well this week on the score, Brian. What was it? 10-20. Good score.
Mate, the one thing I will say, we're sitting here at Sunday night. It's 10:30 almost. How have none of the games updated yet? Or I just had a look.
It's my biggest gripe.
What's happening?
How does this stuff not happen in real time?
There's 5 games this weekend, so nearly less than half, or sorry, nearly half. And the no update, what is happening? I know, first world problems. But anyway, 10-20, it's going to be a lot higher once updates come in because my team's fucking awesome. But no, not really. 10-20, I traded in Teddy, Asako, and Hiroti. So Teddy Asako wins, Hiroti not as much. I am down to 12 trades, so you could say I'm running thin. I hear a lot of content creators, sort of, SuperCoach people talking at this. They've got a lot more trades and they want heaps more for the back end. For me, I'm not overly stressed. I just think years gone by, apart from the carnage of the final couple of rounds, I just find that once, if you've got a really good team heading into those rounds from 20 to 25, there's not a lot of trades year in and year out that I need during that time. So I'm pretty much just expecting to coast and only trade for injuries in that time is my hope. So I'm down to 12 trades, but to be honest with you, I reckon 4 to 6 trades and I'll pretty much have my dream team of kind of what I want. So I'll still have, what's that, 6 to 7 trades, 8 trades to play with if I do that. So this week I'm simply going 2 guys out who aren't playing and 2 in who are playing because I've only got 16 starters without Origin backups. So that's Cleary, Haas and Lomax. So if any of those guys back up, I might get to 17, 18 or so. But that includes Sharpe, but doesn't include Keaon and Hiroti because that's kind of how I'm expecting that to all go down. So my main candidates are Nathan Cleary to Jerome Hughes, just because I think this round and 19 are going to be my hardest if Cleary doesn't back up. And then he plays the Dogs, so I'm not super fussed on holding him for all of that just in case. And then a Hiroti to Talakai, if it's going to be a 6-week calf injury, I reckon Talakai I'll be bringing in 100%. Love a bit of Siffer or Skelton. I think Skelton's a good one. And then a Keaon or Sharpe to Herbie is kind of what I'm eyeing off at this point in time. Kira's definitely coming in for me at 17. And then one of these weeks, I think I'm going to downgrade Jazz as much as I don't want to, because I don't have faith in what's his name, Siebes anymore to play him the minutes that he deserves. So I think I've got to downgrade him because he's in my second hooker spot just to get his cash. Like that'll be like 300K in cash that I can like upgrade a Sandon Smith to like a Harry Grant when I need to, or potentially get another one. But two guys who I was looking to trade out in the coming weeks was Siua Wong or Kickow. They both like scored 90 and 100 this week. So I reckon I can just chill out and leave them in there and let them bubble along for a little bit longer. So yeah, I think I'm going to try and get enough cash, hopefully in the next to go Kyle McCarthy up to Kiraz in 17 somehow. So maybe that's the week actually. Maybe I go, so this week I do something, any of those options. And then next week I go Jazz down to like enough and then go McCarthy up to Kiraz might be my options. So, but yeah, I just think like all our teams, it's getting ridiculous, mate. Like I just think by round 20, people's teams are going to be so similar. It's just not going to, maybe if there's injury carnage, I'll live to eat my words, but I just don't think there's a lot of differentiation. I think it's going to come down to a lot of captaincy and vice captaincy picks is my kind of vibe at this point in time. What are your thoughts on that take?
Yeah, no, I think you're bang on. I'm trying to think of other guys. We might need to do a little bit of deep dive, Brian, to see if you want to get weird and get some real lowly owned point of differences there. Like from a downgrade point of view, depends on who you downgrade at centre wing, but like Jesse Ramien's at 400K, Skelton's at 450. Like I think both of those guys are every week playable personally. Like Jesse Ramien just needs an attacking stat or two. If he didn't get Sinbin on the weekend, he's probably looking at a mid 50 point score in base. Like they're both solid options if you want to just get a bit of cash up your sleeve to upgrade elsewhere there. But Cleary to Hughes, if you're going to go on Jerome Hughes, you probably got to go this week, don't you? It's probably the week to do it, really, moving forward. And I guess Cleary, you want to maybe to see how he gets through the origin period on the back end and see how that looks come round 19-ish or round 20. So no big glaring things from my point of view there, mate. I think you're bang on there. What about fullback? Fullback might be a spot where you can get a bit weird as well, like Drinkwater, bringing him in for 20 points off the back of the 14 point a few weeks ago. There's probably a few people looking to jump off there. Maybe that's a position you can target to see if you want to get somewhere different. But that might be a flex position that you're like, all right, I'm just going to load up on another front row here. And maybe that's the way you go about your team rather than having three fullbacks anymore.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's definitely the interesting thing is I don't think you absolutely need like the way CTW is going, mate. I reckon you could I wouldn't be afraid to bring Herbie in, or a Lomax in or something like that. So yeah, I think there's a few options there. The only one I'm kind of eyeing off as a potential for a downgrade for Jazz is Jaden Brayley. He's played some big minutes the last couple of weeks for the Knights. Scored 54 over the weekend. So, yeah, he's someone who I'm kind of considering as like a downgrade option for somebody who, if you want to have somebody who might score half decent. Oren Keeley played okay on the weekend. But other than that, like just looking through the lower price guys at the moment, there's not much going on. I think Siffer's the one. Like he'll be. So what's his? Yeah. So he only scored 24 on the weekend, so he'll be around 300K. So a little bit of money to be made there, downgrading him from a few options. But yeah, no, I think it's just a matter of surviving this week. I think getting as strong a team as you can, like strong as 17 as you can, rather than like building depth or something like that. I don't think many people have the luxury of doing that this week. I think it'll just be trying to get your 17, 18 players going because I forget about that all the time. We need 18 now because of the flex.
Yeah.
Like I always aim for 17 and I'm like, oh shit, we need 18. So for anybody dumb out there like me, remember that. But otherwise, guys, that is a wrap for this week. If you like the pod, give us a review, recommend to a friend, all those wonderful things. James, Origin on Wednesday. Can't wait to talk to you during the game. And hopefully we are calling ourselves stupid on the podcast next week. Thanks everybody for listening. And as always, up the mighty, mighty Redcliffe Dolphins.